Marlon Smith. I appreciate you joining me today, bro.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how's your day been so far?
It's been good. Woke up with a little run with some awesome guys this morning and got into the word. So feeling good, cranking away.
What got into the word? If you had one thing that stuck out to you most from this morning, what was it?
Um, just the difference between the routine that you create and kind of leading with the heart, and from a more spiritual sense. It's two very different things, but they coincide with one another.
Yeah, and I think somebody in the group alluded to how that's kind of across a lot of different areas of life, right? Like the difference between having a routine and having the intention behind what it is that we're doing. Do you feel like that has reared its head in other areas of your life besides just faith?
Yeah, most definitely. So, like, routine is everything, in my life. But like, for my personal experience is that if you kind of let that kind of seep in too deeply, you can lose connection with the reason why you're doing it. So, like, as an athlete, I was used to doing all these different things. It became second nature. And then I got to a point where I had like a high performance type of mindset where if it wasn't producing this or that, I wasn't happy, which obviously isn't very healthy. But definitely, the routine and habits is definitely a big part of my life.
Yeah, and I was reading on the AllInFit website this morning, just your bio. It was talking about how at some point in your athletic career you beat up your back, and that's really what kind of took you away from the game.
Hmm.
But you noticed exactly that point, which is that the same kind of habits and routines and things that you did as an athlete were things that you felt like could help you in business and other areas of life, and ultimately that's why you've kind of gone the direction that you have in your entrepreneurial journey. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I was transitioning from the being an athlete to what we call a business athlete, there's some crossover for sure, and I think that the challenge with athletes when they transition, whether it's collegiately or professionally, is you lose a big part of your identity. But the habits and the lessons and the routines and the regimen, all that type of stuff, you could still take with you. And so I had to figure out over time, how to extract that part of it and taking it into what I do now,
Hmm.
and not really defining that as like just an athletic or a sports thing. It's transferable.
Yeah. How do you think you were able to disconnect the two? Because I know from my perspective, like, man, I had a hard time when I got done playing figuring out how to channel the energy and the routines and life outside of sports. And I feel like it really wasn't until like the last couple years of my life that I really developed a more like healthy relationship with the routines and the training and the discipline and the regiments that served me so well as an athlete and do serve me in my life outside of sports as well. But I feel like it took me a while to get to a really like healthy balance. So what was your like how did you actually navigate doing that, and was it challenging?
Very challenging. I mean, it's still a challenge today. I think for me, I mean, I got therapy, so
Hmm.
that's one thing, and the availability of resources. Like, I've seen some companies, I can't forget the guy's name, but it was basically a nonprofit for veterans and athletes when they're transitioning from that brotherhood.
Here, Austin based?
Yeah, it was. I was watching. I forgot the guy's name.
Nate
He
Boyer?
sounds familiar. There's a guy that runs, and he was jogging with this Navy SEAL,
Okay.
former Navy SEAL guy, and like he's a part of this organization.
Okay.
I forget what it's called, but there's not a lot of resources like that. They're just now starting to come out with things that can help that athlete transition because it's a big part of your identity. At least
Hmm.
you think it is. So what I had to figure out was, okay, why do I have this high performance type of mindset? What are some things that I'm ignoring? And then once I started figuring that out through therapy and through observation, like catching myself,
Hmm.
in certain aspects, I started to find more happiness, in the work that I did. Like it's almost like became more meaningful.
Yeah.
extracting those routines and everything from being an athlete. So therapy definitely is key. And then the second thing I would say is like, how could we replicate that model on other platforms? So like the group today, like that's a form of the locker room, the team camaraderie.
Right.
Getting together with some guys, getting in the word, getting together with people where you're struggling or working hard towards something.
Yeah.
And that creates that for me.
What do you think, this high performance mindset you talk about? So, what do you think fostered that mindset within you? I mean, obviously, I think we'll probably go into this next, but, talking about your athletic career and things that you've experienced, like, what do you think ultimately pushed you to have kind of this, like, high performance mindset? And I'll just shut up now. Yeah.
Yeah. No. That's man, it's striking a chord with me because I'm still navigating with it. So even though I've like had moments of realization, I'm still haven't arrived to the point I want to be at. The best way I can say it is that I was always like from a young age, and a lot of this has to do with kind of my father and I too. My parents had me very young. They did a really good job, an exceptional job. All of us are doing well and things like that. Me and my three siblings, but they were young, and so my dad and I kind of bumped heads a lot growing up. I was misunderstood. He was misunderstood, and so there was a lot that I did for the approval of someone else. So my dad being one of them. And then that coupled with like just, regular, normal kid growing up stuff, people making fun of you because you look different, you're taller or you're short or you got big feet or whatever else it is. And then for me, just being an athlete, everything I did was kind of discredited. Like, and so I thank God for it. I don't regret anything because it made me work hard. I'm still would consider myself a hard worker today. But it was all coming from not a place of love, it was coming from a place of approval. So I ended up being that guy that would be the strongest in the weight room or be, first in the conditioning sprints or pushing people or doing things that were more or exceeding the position that I was in. Prime example, basketball. Played a basketball player my whole life. And, when you're in high school, you're 6'6", they expect you to be down in the post, right?
Yeah.
So my coach would call me Houdini because I would do a lot of other stuff. Like I always felt like if I could dribble the ball really well, if I can shoot the three, then now it's more than just, oh, you're just scoring because you're big and tall, right? So that's where it came from. Like mainly it's just really just trying to approval. So I didn't really know why I was doing it up until recently.
Yeah, so it was almost like you were proving that you didn't have to fit in this like pigeonhole of like, oh, just because I'm tall, I have to play in the post. And then that probably manifested into other areas of your life where you were just trying to prove that you didn't have to do something.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually, that way of thinking caused an implosion.
Yeah.
It was not sustainable. We'll probably get into that, but it'll put me in a place of isolation outside of what I did. Once I left from football or basketball practice, like I said, like I've at the very beginning when we started talking identity, I had an identity challenge for football, but I was never now I'm in a place where I feel like I'm Marlon no matter what I'm doing. If I'm in the weight room, if I'm in business, if I'm trying to close a deal, I'm Marlon. I don't have to be these 2-3 different things. And that's kind of how I felt up until therapy.
And would you say you went from operating from a place of I need approval to just operating out of love, almost like self-love and your own approval for yourself?
Yeah, that was actually the foundation of the therapy that I got. It's very different when you're doing things from love. If my father, for instance, if it wasn't if I had a game and I didn't do too well. You know, I missed layups or whatever may happen. And then after it was like, come on, how you gonna miss that? Like, you know, come on, like, you know, do better, whatever. Okay, cool. So I probably should have made that layup. But if it's like I know when I'm out there that like my dad's gonna love me no matter what, I can still perform at a high level. I can still, you know, I can make those mistakes and I can still get that type of constructive criticism afterwards, but advance myself in a way that's like not, because it weighs down on you. You know,
Right.
when you want to perform at a high level, it's like that's all that life becomes about now. It's just high level performance. Did I score enough points? Did I make enough tackles? It becomes a point system, and that's not a healthy way of living. So most definitely, like when you're coming from love, when you're doing things out of love, when you're receiving love, it changes the game completely.
Yeah, and your value is no longer attached to your performance, but you're valuable just because you're Marlon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to learn that.
Yeah, that resonates big time. Very similar journey to me. But yeah, I would love to actually just go back to where it all started. You know, San Antonio. I know small town, actually just outside of San Antonio. But talk to us a little bit about growing up. You were a hooper when it all started, but your journey, you got a pretty special journey. So just talk a little bit about your upbringing and the nature of your basketball career to start.
Yeah. So my parents, like I said, had me very young. You know, I've been in sports all my life. Pretty like we came up, you know, pretty well. You know, didn't miss a beat considering kind of what the statistics say. My mom had me at 16, so you know, if you look up kind of the statistics, you know, it usually has a trajectory. That wasn't our story. Yeah, been an athlete my whole life, and was you know, playing football and playing basketball every year, and even collegiately. But just to sum it all up, you know, I didn't get to go to the school that I wanted to go to, and that was TCU. So
Why not?
well, I had to take the SAT. So I mean, everyone has to take the SAT, but like what I'm saying is like I needed to take the, you know, what the clearinghouses type deal. So I ended up taking the SAT and then paired that with my grades. I got in, but at that point, there was no more scholarships left. So I put all my eggs in a basket going to TCU. Like the coach came to my house and everything. And so yeah, when it didn't work out, and granted, we didn't know the recruiting game. Like that's very, very powerful. If you know what camps to go to, if you know when to send out letters, whatever else it is, like you can put yourself in a position to get any school you want if you got a little bit of talent. Right. So we didn't know that. So that was like my first blow of failure. That's when I was like, so I ended up taking a full scholarship to play basketball at St. Mary's in San Antonio. I did not want to go there, but my mom said, "Hey, this is a full scholarship. You know, go here, get your education, make the most out of it." I ended up going.
Was that the first year of St. Mary's basketball team?
No. That's UTSA.
Okay. So we'll get there.
Yeah. So I was there. Did really well. Started a good portion of the season, and then just slowly but surely, after I graduated from high school, this is right around the time my parents got divorced too. This started getting in trouble. Like, towards the end of that year, like I failed a drug test. Just started isolating. Didn't know why. I mean, I could take some guesses at it. Like, some might say it's because of the divorce. Some might say just whatever, hanging around with the wrong people. I like to think it is just because of my identity. I didn't really know who I was. I never really felt like I came from love.
Right.
I was always doing something for validation. So I think that's probably the main reason. But that was like the first time I had ever really been in like real trouble, where it's like they got to call on your parents, they got to, you know, talk to you. There's talks about, you know, taking your scholarship away or whatever, because that school is pretty strict. It's a private school.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it, like that point, it was D2 as well. So they can take away part of your scholarship. With D1, they can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they were doing with me for like a semester, and I ended up leaving. From there. I had already knew UTSA was coming. I wanted to play football anyways, coming out of high school, and so I went over to UTSA. I was one of the first recruits there. I was going to start from scratch. That's exactly what I did, and ended up working out. Got a scholarship, I think, in the inaugural year.
Mm-hmm.
So 2010 was a year when they brought up all the red shirts. And then I came in 2009. So I graduated high school in 2008. I went over to UTSA 2009, that fall semester.
Okay.
And was there just going to school without, yeah.
You said football was what you wanted to do. So did you not have any football opportunities when it was time for you to graduate? And so that's why you went to St. Mary's? Or was
Exactly.
It? Okay. But that
Yeah.
was still you wanted to make that happen at some point? Or had you kind of given up on the idea of playing football at that point?
I did really well at both sports. So, like, I was open. You know, in my mind, like, that's one thing I did know if I didn't know anything else. I can play at the next level. I can go pro,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in basketball or football. And so that was my mentality. But then, you know, when things started folding at St. Mary's, like I said, I did well there. It was kind of, I never really felt like I fit in.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was like transitioning my mind to football.
I got you.
But they also have a basketball program at UTSA, so I was like, you know, I can walk on and play basketball. I was kind of fluid. But yeah, that's essentially what happened. I put all my eggs in the basket to go into TCU. That didn't work out. So I took the full ride to go play basketball. Left from there, started at UTSA, did really well, and then the situation happened again.
The drug test situation?
The drug test situation, yeah, happened again. And yeah, it's one of those things where you're leaving from a situation to start scratch, but the problem still exists within you.
Right.
I was very arrogant. I was very isolated. At that time, like, I was an advocate for anything medicinal. I was just like, why are they even testing for this? Like, we're not bothering nobody. Like, I just kind of just made up all these different things in my head. Tried to, curtail the system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, none of that worked. And by curtail, I mean just like, you know, drinking a lot of water. If you know you're gonna have a drug test, like doing all the different things that people do to try to pass a drug test.
Right.
But never worked out. I had several chances, had an opportunity to get drafted there, and ended up having to be released from the program, and that's when I really felt the humiliation.
From UTSA.
I got released from the
Really?
program at UTSA.
Wow.
In my second year, that would have been my last year. I'm still second time all time in sacks there.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Coker was our coach there. There was a lot of different. The writing was on the wall as far as what I can be at. There was not even a doubt in my mind, nor my coaches or evaluators. But I missed that last year, and that's when it was in the newspapers. It was in the news. It was everywhere. Social media. I was getting asked stuff in person. Like, that's when I really felt the weight of the world coming down on me. It was embarrassing to my family, humiliated, and then what am I going to do now? What options do I have? So that was a transition there, but fast forward 2 years later, I ended up going to the CFL. I took 2 years off.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that.
Right.
Like, you go from, and I'm harping on this because it's significant in the whole story, but you go from basically starting a football program at UTSA and being like the inaugural class, setting records, to release from the program. Transitional time, like you said, and I know you're about to jump into what happened 2 years later, but like in that period of time, that 2 year period, like, were you training? Where was your mindset at? And what headspace were you in as you were navigating this like immense amount of ambiguity?
Yeah, man, it was tough. Man, I actually had never been asked that before. Like, it was a blur. I working odd jobs. I was finishing up that semester, that 2012, I think, semester at UTSA. So I was going to school still, without being on the program, which added another layer of humiliation.
Right.
But that's what I was doing that semester. And I think going into 2013, I can't remember what jobs I had, but I had worked like selling, fundraising for like local businesses around high schools. Got into like sales positions, worked as like a collector. Like I did a lot of different things, man. Just trying to figure it out. I've always been I've always loved training, so I definitely didn't let my health go to the wayside. But I was probably partying.
Yeah.
That probably was part of it for sure. And just trying to figure things out. And so it wasn't until about a year and some change that I started looking at the CFL.
Okay.
Don't even know how I landed on that, because again, if you were to tell me this like back then, I would have been like, CFL is beneath me. Sorry, let me go back one more time to the TCU thing. The coaches that told me to go to JUCO, right, for one semester and then they can transfer me in.
No way.
I said no. I was like, no, I ain't gonna do that. Like I'm above JUCO.
Right.
I'm above doing that. So, anyways, kind of lost myself for a second. We're back.
You were saying that the CFL had came into your awareness at this point in time, whereas prior you were like, no way would I ever think of the CFL.
Yeah, exactly. That was the same thing with the CFL. But started looking into it. I was like, this could be a hell of an opportunity. Started doing more research, and then got an opportunity. The funny thing about kind of my life is just, I mean, God has just redeemed, and redeemed like several times. Just from the St. Mary's situation to the UTSA situation, and then to the Ottawa Red Blacks. What's unique about all of those things is that those are all new programs. My high school, I didn't even talk about high school, but the high school I went to was a new school that I started. Came from a traditional powerhouse football team, Judson High School, and went there, and then I went to UTSA to start that, and then the CFL team I went to was a new thing. So I'm not sure what God is telling me with all that, because like I'm just have a knack for starting new things, right, or being a part of that. But in each time there's like a 2-year difference. But just to fast forward, just kind of how everything started. Starting from high school, ended up going to the St. Mary's, UTSA, then the CFL team, the Ottawa Red Blacks. Did really well there, and that's when I also started facing other adversity, which is, being in pro sports. Like that was a whole another layer. I played differently, got released a couple times, and then ended up moving back down to San Antonio.
What do you think were the biggest challenges of playing in professional sports?
The layer of feeling like you're gonna get cut. So you don't want to screw things up. And that's like a one-way ticket back home. To not run a play right when you've been taught it. So dealing with that. Also at the time I was in a relationship, so that added probably a layer of anxiety. Because it's like you go back home. She's Canadian.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a challenge there. And I think that's pretty much it. At the end of the day, it was football. But like that adds so much more in it. So I think I didn't play as fast as I could play because I was worried about making mistakes.
Yeah.
But I played well enough, and just dealing with the game because it's not fair. Because you can have a guy there was a guy, for instance, when I was after my first 2 years there, I was planning on in the NFL. There was a guy that had the same stats as me, maybe a little bit smaller, and got an opportunity to play with the Jets. And there was nothing coming from me. So dealing with that, trying to understand that, and having to press on. So I mean, those are probably the most challenging things. But getting cut, be the fourth one. Right? Sorry, getting cut.
Yeah. What do you make of that analogy of like, in football specifically? I remember being coached all the time, like to not be thinking about it and just to like go full speed. And this is the first time I've ever thought about how that applies to life outside of sports. And I think there's actually a lot of value in that specific guidance outside of sports? Because I think a lot of people will be in this analysis paralysis mode where they're thinking and planning and have all these ideas of things they want to create and do. Like take the business, for example, AllInFit. Like you could think about how you wanted it to look and think about what you would do if you were doing it full time. But if you never like actually go full speed ahead, it's not going to grow into what it is today. So what do you make of that advice? Like, play full speed ahead.
Yeah, it's better to be. I think Steve Jobs said it. Like, we're going to make a ton of mistakes, but at least we're making decisions. And you could speed up the production or the lessons learned. I think that everyone that knows me would say I'm a thinker. I'm a deep thinker. The coaches, I would be told all the time, even from friends, like, you're thinking too much. Stop overthinking. Mm-hmm. And that started to be something, too, that really bothered me. But that's another story. But you definitely have to, you get your reps in practice, right? Mm-hmm. You don't bite off more than you can chew. I think Damon John said that most small businesses fail because like when they make a mistake or it's exacerbated by the amount of money they took on, the amount of debt. Mm-hmm. When there's people that started their business for $40. Mm-hmm. They're like, I want to start a business. Okay, you can start it, and I add on all those different like layers and make mistakes, but it won't hurt you that much. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely think that you need to prepare, you need to practice, you need to think about what you're doing, but then you also need to be decisive. And I was like that in football. Like it was different when I played in college. In college, like when I played football, I practiced my butt off. Like I practiced all that, so in the game, full speed. I also wasn't worried about getting cut either. So professional like football, it's a shift. Like from college to playing professional, your mindset has to be tough. But when I got in the game, it was just second nature. I'm flying, doing my thing. In the CFL, it was different. Mm-hmm. It was different because even though I was prepared, you second guess yourself. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, let me make sure, and you're thinking more because you're worried about getting cut or not doing the right play, and all it does is backfire on you.
Yeah. How do you think the high performance mindset that we've talked about a decent bit, like, do you think that was heavily involved in that fear of, like there's a level of fear around, I could get cut, but do you think it also played in from the standpoint of like my value is attached to the fact that I'm a CFL football player, and if I don't make these plays, if I don't run the right blitz or stunt, like my value, I have no value. Do you think that was involved?
Yeah. I think I was actually thinking about this the other day, because I reminisce on my experience, playing ball. But there's some people that get to a certain level and they're just trying to make it at that level. I just want to make it. I want to have a successful business. I want to, make the 53-man roster, right? And then there's some people that go into a situation and saying, I want to be the best, or I not only want to make it at this level, I want to be a guy that they talk about, It's a very different mindset, and it's a very different disposition, in the whole thing. And so, I definitely think that you can still. If you made it to that level, you're a high performer
for sure.
But to be, to differentiate yourself, you got to be that person that, isn't worried about it. You're not. It's a possibility,
right?
It's like, why put your attention on it? Why put your energy into thinking about it? You already know it's a possibility. People get cut. It happens.
Right.
But if you kind of went into it just like, hey, I'm not thinking about getting cut because I'm focusing on doing my job the best that I can do it. Not just doing it right, doing it like Nick Saban said, doing it till you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Like getting into that place, I think is what I had challenges with, and that's be the one thing that if I could change, if God came in here with His magic wand and could take me back, that would be the one thing that I would change.
Man, I think it's interesting to hear you say that, because what came to mind for me was like just be in the present moment, and that's like again across sports, but also life in general. It's like we can spend so much time thinking about, oh, I might get cut, or this might happen, or this could or should, or whatever happen. But like, what good does that do you in the present moment where your feet are with what the project that's sitting right in front of you? Like, there's really no value in it.
Right.
So that's
Very
super
true.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no value in it, and I have to. I mean, just for what we're doing right now in AllInFit, no one else is doing across the state. Hardly any company in the nation. We have a team now. There's just there's pressure, but you can either give in to the pressure, which means you're giving it more attention than what it needs, or you can focus on kind of doing what's required. Getting up in the morning, and so that's I've been floating with that a little bit, because it can become a lot. And the game of business is similar to the game of sports. It really is, and that's what we build our brand and our concept off of. So it's something that I'm still learning, and something that we try to give our clients the blueprint to understand.
Yeah. So I mean, let's get into that. So
Yeah.
you went CFL, a few years in the CFL. Had another first with the Arena Football, or
The Alliance of American Football League.
So had another first there.
Yeah.
That went for a year.
So it was the league was only 1 year. I didn't even last that long.
Okay.
So I'll get into that. Yeah.
So, but then when that ended, it was time to create this new Marlon. That's identity was no longer the football player, but like it's time to do something else. And I know, for me, when I think about my transition, it was like I got to get a job. I got to go do something in corporate America. For you, when football ended, what was your mindset around what was next?
Yeah, when I got to that point, I went into the high performance mindset again. Now, it backfired a little bit. So let me back up a little bit. The Commanders was the team, San Antonio Commanders. This is another redemption. I'm thinking, God, yes, thank you. I get to play the game again, see if it didn't work out. But guess what? Like, I got signed to this team. I was one of the first, got one of the first contracts there. From there. Was in good shape, everything. I was like, man, this is promising. We got Daryl Johnson, Moose as our GM. We got all this other NFL talent. Here it is. Well, my back started to, the most random thing I was doing when I was training, I was touching on the goalposts. And then pulled up my back. I was like, come on, man. And so I actually, I'll fast forward. I ended up getting cut. Just because it was the same issue I had in college, and they didn't want to give me a steroid injection for whatever reason. So I got cut, and this is like literally before camp was starting. I had brought so much food, all these different. At this point, like I started my company. Started my company. I think it was 2018. This is like a partnership I had. So I had like an ambassador deal with this company called Zedrix. Like, I was ready going into camp. It was a meal plan company, and then got cut and had to take all that stuff out. It was humiliating because I had to take all that stuff. Like, while I see the guys going into practice to watch film or whatever, like I'm carrying the hotel, whatever that thing is called. What's the bell? The thing you carry your luggage
the
on.
bellhop thing.
Yeah, I had a fridge on there. I had so much stuff. I'm like, man, it took everything in my power not to cry. Because I was just like, I didn't understand why these things are happening to me. But, after that happened, I was still, I wanted to have my own business. I ended up going out on my own or separated from that partnership in February. So February 2019 is when I started AllInFit. But I was all in, right? And not much was coming in.
Right.
So the high performance mindset bit me in the butt because I was, a bit arrogant, a bit stubborn to go and have something that was producing some type of cash flow. while I was building that.
Mm-hmm.
I was convinced that like I would die, like I would die trying doing this thing. I'm gonna be all in on this.
Right.
Thank God for my awesome wife. She said it in the most sweetest way because no one could really get through to me at that time, and she said that it's not quitting to go and put yourself in a position. This is at this time she was living in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I was still in San Antonio. So I ended up moving to Austin. I got a job at Lifetime. Still had AllInFit as my plan. I never wanted to leave from that. Um, and then the rest was history. Yeah, so started a brand, and we could talk about that here.
Yeah. So was AllInFit at that point in time when you were getting done with the Alliance Football League? Was it high performance coaching, training? Like, what exactly did it look like then? And then has it evolved since?
Yeah, so it started really even before February, before the February mark when I was still like in this partnership, it was training athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a company so I had my experience in Canada. We also had connections in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and they did international football camps. So we had one guy that would handle film. I would handle like the training and some of the operations, and then the other guy would handle the recruiting and setting up the camps and stuff like that for these countries.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still like involved with training athletes, like younger athletes, high school, middle school. So that's kind of where it started. And then when I moved to Austin, I still had some athletes I was training for football in San Antonio, but then everything just kind of morphed into training. Gym pop. So training them like athletes,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out kind of what their needs were, and so now our demographics are anywhere from the age of 35 to 55 years old. Family, kids, motivated. Some own businesses. Some people are in sales. So we're working with business athletes, people that want and desire to get better, and we're giving them the blueprint of how athletes train.
What do you think caused the transition from more of a true athlete focus on student athletes, whether it be high school, middle school, collegiate, or beyond, to that gym pop, salesperson that's wanting to crush their quota, also have a healthy body and strong mind, to the executive, to who are like those gym pop people who are motivated? What do you think caused that transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the keyword. I would say more. It was a parallel.
Mm-hmm.
So the more I started talking to, some of the people we work with to this day, I started just listening to them, their challenges, their long work hours, the stress, the demands on the daily,
Mm-hmm.
on their mental as well as physical, and happen to to eat what you hunt, you know. That's how it's like being an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put in the work, especially in the collegiate or professional level. The percentages go way down for people that actually make it to that level.
For sure.
The percentages are way down with people that are actually successful in business, and don't go out of business in the first 3 years.
Mm.
So I started to say, oh man, this is a parallel. And just like what I've learned as a professional athlete was transferable to the business athlete and their struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what it kind of clicked for me a little bit. That one, candidly, I wanted to create something that I could speak to, that I understand, that gives me that sense of team camaraderie. That we're talking about replicating, duplicating the experience as a collegiate athlete or professional athlete. I wanted that,
Mm-hmm.
and with that, I found there was other people that really valued that. So there was a parallel between that and then just the fit business wise was just a convenience of what we do, which I'll speak to in a second.
Yeah, and so when it began, did you have a brick and mortar space? Were you meeting people at their home gym, at their house, or were you training them at Lifetime?
Yeah.
Obviously this is a strength conditioning training platform, so to speak. Where do you actually do the training?
So yeah, we never had a brick and mortar. It's been 100% mobile since inception. We do house calls, so doing one-on-ones or like semi-private group of like 4. And then we have an online service as well. And then eventually, before we got our latest concept, we would get community outreach programs in neighborhoods like Liberty Hill and Cedar Park, and then we would do kind of larger group stuff outside of their amenity gym or in an area kind of designated for fitness. So yeah, that's how it started.
And how have you, I mean, one thing that I've found in my own business and entrepreneurial journey is like, you just kind of figure stuff out as you go. Like, yeah, you have ideas and you want to bring stuff to life, but oftentimes as you're going down a path, it looks a little bit different than you maybe anticipated. So what has it been like to grow your business, scale your business, and how do you continue to do that? I feel like the last couple of times I've seen you, there's been this level of like, man, there's new things happening and exciting things, and it's like, yeah, I'm just curious how different has the journey looked than what you maybe anticipated, and what are some of the exciting things that you're working on?
Yeah, it's definitely tougher than what I thought it was going to be, right, for starters. Um, you have to have patience, and it's definitely changed me as a man. Entrepreneurship, I think, is like the greatest teacher of of character. Um, but yeah, definitely. Trying to think how I can answer this. Could you ask me the question again?
Hey, I just
There's
asked,
like a lot
like,
of question.
how different has it looked than what you maybe anticipated, and essentially, like, how have you grown and scaled the business? Because, I think of a personal training business or a performance training business, and it's like, we do house calls, but I know that you're doing a lot of awesome stuff. So I'm just curious to learn more about the journey and how you've evolved and changed as you've been in business.
Yeah, operations has been something I've learned a lot. Just kind of focusing on that. Also, because my appetite is too big for my stomach, so definitely getting focused on one or two different projects. That can advance the company as opposed to like 10 different things. When we make a decision, it's like, okay, we got to understand there's going to be 10, 15, 20 things attached to this on the back end. Do we have the resources, tools to be able to fulfill that? So I'm thinking about things a little bit more methodically now at this point in my journey. As far as different projects go, I mean, we decided to be 100% mobile from the jump because we saw that there was just an opportunity. There wasn't hardly any companies out there doing it at a high level, and so we got together and said, hey, well, what can we do with this? And that's when the AllInFit truck was born. And so that's our large group concept. And we always want to see how can we expand and grow the house call fitness industry. What can we do? So that's one thing. And just figuring out how we can make things more convenient, help people save more time, help provide more accountability. The ultimate goal is that we want people to not miss a beat with what you would get at like a big box gym. And that's kind of how the AllInFit truck was born. Was how do we make a product that they won't compromise, that they won't feel like they're compromised, and like the house call. I mean, people can get a good workout with just a kettlebell or a dumbbell. But outside of like that type of equipment, you're really kind of limited to what you can do, especially when you start doing small group or anything bigger than that. So that's pretty much where it was born, and figuring out how to expand from there. So we're running the same play, just with different players and and going a little bit further with the plays that we're running. So, that's the beauty about kind of what we're doing. We got some other ideas we're working on bringing recovery, conveniently to people. But we're a full scale, comprehensive wellness package.
Yeah.
Everything you need, you can get with us at your convenience.
So what does that look like? Like, let's say Torchy's Tacos founder and CEO calls Marlon and says, hey, I want to get a session in. Are you pulling up, working out for 30 minutes, leaving? Or what is there a typical session and what that looks like? Or is it kind of dependent on the client?
Yeah, so we have small groups. So for the truck itself, we're about to roll out a small group option, call it like small group exec.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a team of go-getters, these are your killers, the CEO and like your top director of sales or whatever, and other C-suite executives, you guys would get together and we'll go there for an hourly rate.
Okay.
And work with you. It's not really meant to service people one-on-one just because of how big the truck is.
Yeah.
Gas and things like that. The truck is meant to have be more community.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have packages that will be like reoccurring. If we talk to the Torchy's founder,
Yeah.
and he's like, yeah, I think our team would love this. What would it be for you to come out? We just fit them in a schedule, and now they're reoccurring. We also do special event pop-ups. So if you don't think this is something they would do regularly,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to bring your team out to do something and like bond with your team, then we can come out for 3 or 4 hours, get the people together for a workout, things like that.
Very cool, man. It's cool to hear the just the entrepreneurial spirit and how it kind of guides you and you figure out what makes sense.
Yeah.
What kind of back to you, like how do you pour a lot of effort and energy into your clients and the people around you. How do you make sure that you're also having time to like pour into yourself? Do you have daily routines and things that you do to make sure that like Marlon's taken care of?
Yeah, my wife and I try to have family day every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So like tomorrow they have like half off movies at like Alamo. So sometimes we'll switch the day. So tomorrow I think we're gonna go to the movies, but just little things. The truth of the matter is like I really love what I do. So I love working. At this point it's pretty much every day.
Mm-hmm.
And just finding like the love in it and not just doing it to just for validation,
Mm-hmm.
but doing it because I want to, at this point we have a team, that we're growing, and like I'm looking at what I do as like a service to them and their family. And so, I don't take that lightly. So I pretty much right now, like I'm more aware of it. So I'm more aware when I'm not giving myself like I like the time that I need
Mm-hmm.
to recover. But the truth is, right now, I love what I do. Going to the gym is something that's always been a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm not doing it so that I can have more girth with me when I'm taking on the tackle.
Right.
Now it's like I'm doing it because you know what? Sometimes I go to the gym, I don't even have an agenda.
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm getting here. I just want to move,
Right.
be around, smile, bust a sweat, and get out.
Right.
All right, so I do that. I'm a huge stand-up comedy guy.
Okay.
Yeah, so I love to laugh. So just little things, man. Just love laughing, love going to the movies, love spending time with my wife. Seeing my friends and watching football.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, but just little things. Like I'm not a huge meditator,
Mm-hmm.
although I do need to give myself that time, probably in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Because it won't be any other time throughout the day, just with everything going on. But that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Who's your NFL team? You got one?
Packers,
How are they doing this year?
4-6. 4-6. We just beat the Chargers
Okay.
yesterday, and we got the Lions this week, who's crushing it this
Yeah.
year. So if we win that, hey, we might be able to squeeze in the playoffs. But no, we didn't really have high expectations for this year.
Right. How'd you become a Packers fan?
I was, man, I get that question a lot. Like I think I was like 7, 8 years old, and I just remember seeing the Packers. I think this is one of the years they won a Super Bowl.
Okay.
I liked the coach. The coach just looked raw, and like he was like spitting on the sideline. I was like, man, I want to play for that guy. And this is like right around the time I'm like 8, 9.
Yeah.
So I think like when I first started like strapping on pads was like 10, 11.
Okay.
So this kind of became my team. And what's ironic is my dad's side of the family is all from like Illinois, Detroit. So my dad is a huge Bears fan.
Okay.
So it especially didn't make any sense. But yeah, since the age of 7, been a Packers fan.
That's random.
Never switched up.
Are you a Spurs guy?
I do like the Spurs, yeah. Spurs and the Warriors. I would suppose. Like I've liked Curry growing up. I'm from San Antonio, so that's the team that I root for. They've been trash for the past 3-4 years, however long it's been. But now that they got Wembanyama,
Yeah, he's nice.
they're fun to watch. They're still losing a lot of games though, but
Yeah.
now I'm more engaged.
Hmm.
So that's the team that I root for, but I got a little less engaged over the last few years.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I always ask my guests, if you had a piece of advice to leave the audience with, whether it be sports, entrepreneurial, whatever you want, what would it be?
Give yourself the time you need to figure out you. Once you figure out you, then everything else is possible. And it's an ongoing journey of figuring out you. Who are you? What's your purpose? Why do you do the things that you do? And when you find those answers within yourself, then you find a path. And when you find a path, you find purpose. You find purpose, you find meaning and fulfillment. So I think that's the main thing, just because of how I've seen myself make so many mistakes and go down a path that I would not have chosen just from not knowing that, not taking that time. So that'd be the main thing, to know yourself is to put yourself in a position to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, man, I appreciate you joining me today. This was awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And to the audience, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Walk Up Mentality Podcast. And we'll see you on the next one.